Hare Krishna. We are continuing to read from Caitanya Caritamrita. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Speaking from Adi Lila, chapter 5, which is, we are hearing about the glories of Lord Nityananda Ram, his tattva, that he's Balaramji himself, and we have been reading the text 22, the purport. We're continuing with this text. It is a verse from the Brahma Samhita, that Lord Brahma. He says this: I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. So we have been reading the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We're going to continue to read. He was giving us a glimpse of how Brahmaji is seeing the Vaikuntha Lok, and Prabhupada is beautifully describing us the opulence of the Vaikuntha Lok, the opulence, the beauty. And then Prabhupada is explaining to us how the perfect yogi who understands, is perfectly following and able to perform the Ashtanga Yoga, he can leave the body in a manner. He can leave the body and decide his own destination. Where does he want to go? Which planet he want to go? So for the perfect yogi who has attained success in the method of leaving his body in perfect consciousness, transferring from one planet to another is as easy as an ordinary man's walking to the grocery store. So for us, this is like, oh my God, how do you do it? How you are able to leave the body, you raise your life air from one chakra to another, then you concentrate, you position, and then you fix the life air, and you're able to control how to leave the life air from which part and which destination to go. It's very difficult for us to even begin to imagine these things. But it seems now for the yogi, it is as easy as it is for us when we go to the grocery store. So as already discussed, the material body is just a covering of the spiritual soul. So I am not this body, but I am inside this body. I am the soul and I am inside this body. Just like I'm wearing these clothes. That I wear these clothes like that. This material body is the clothes of the soul. Mind and intelligence are the undercoverings, and the gross body of earth, water, air, and so on is the overcoating of the soul. So we are also wearing undercover, and we wear inside. Underneath, we wear clothes. And then we have outer clothes. So our subtle body, made of mind, intelligence, and false ego, that is the subtle body. That's like our underclothes. And this gross body, which we are able to see, which is made of earth, water, air, with the senses, that is like our outside clothes, which we can see, like our coat, like I'm wearing this coat right now. So as such, any advanced soul who has realized himself by the yogic process, who knows the relationship between matter and spirit, can leave the gross dress of the soul in perfect order and as he desires. So the perfect yogi, he understands he's not this body, not this material body. He understands he is the spirit soul. And so he, by his yogic process, he has qualified himself that he can leave whenever he likes, and he can go to whichever destination he likes. By the grace of God, we have complete freedom. Because the Lord is kind to us, we can live anywhere either in the spiritual sky or in the material sky, upon whichever planet we desire. That is the freedom given to us. We say, right, freedom is my birthright. What is the freedom? This is the freedom that we can desire. We want to be in material world, we want to be in spiritual world, we want to be in whichever planet we want to be. However, misuse of this freedom causes one to fall down into the material world and suffer the threefold miseries of conditioned life. The living of a miserable life in the material world by the dint of the soul's choice is nicely illustrated by Milton in Paradise Lost. Similarly, by choice, the soul can regain paradise and return home back to Godhead. So we misused our freedom. We say we want to come to this material world. And so we are here in the material world. And so, of course, we have to abide by the laws of this material world. For example, if we desire to go to any particular country, then we have to follow the laws of that particular country. We have to. So similarly, we are in the material world, so we have to abide by the laws of this material world. We are subjected to the laws of this material world. But what is this material world laws? There is threefold miseries. At any given point of time, each living entity is subjected to these threefold miseries. Now, why is that? Why is this misery there actually? Why is that? It's because we are in an artificial environment. Like putting a fish out of the water and giving him everything else except putting him back in the water. So of course the fish is going to feel miserable. No matter how much you give the fish comforts according to our understanding as what comfort is, very nice, soft, cushiony bed, nice pillows, nice air conditioning. And then we are saying, why is the fish suffering? Just put him in the water. So this is why we suffer here in the material world, because we are spirit souls. We belong to the spiritual nature, to the spiritual world. That's why it said, return home, go back home. Our home is in the spiritual world. Back to Godhead, back to the kingdom of God. At the critical time of death, one can place the vital force between the two eyebrows and decide where he wants to go. So this is of the yogi, the Ashtanga yogi. He is deciding where he wants to go. If he is reluctant to maintain any connection with the material world, he can, in less than a second, reach the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha and appear there completely in his spiritual body, which will be suitable for him in the spiritual atmosphere. So this is the perfect yogi. He can decide, he can choose if he wants to go to the spiritual world, and he can go there. And in the spiritual world, of course, we do not need this material body. This material body is just needed to be here in this material world. In the spiritual world, we have spiritual bodies. For example, if we are going to go scuba diving into the ocean, then we have to put on that scuba gear, right? We have to wear those, the whole scuba diving suit and the oxygen tank and all that. But once we are back on land, we do not need that suit. We can walk around, breathe freely, walk around however we want. Similarly, when we go back to the spiritual world, we do not need this material body. We have our own spiritual body, and we act in that body. So that is what is suitable for the spiritual atmosphere. A spiritual body is suitable for spiritual atmosphere. We can see like how the fish has a body which is suitable to live in the ocean. We have bodies which are suitable to live on land. Similarly, in the spiritual world, we do not need this material body because in the spiritual world is a spiritual atmosphere. So we give up this material body and regain our spiritual body. He has simply to desire to leave the material world, both in finer and in grosser forms, and then move the vital force to the topmost part of the skull and leave the body from the hole in the skull called the Brahma Randhara. This is easy for one perfect in the practice of yoga. So this is easy for a one who is perfected in the practice of yoga. How many of us are able to do this now, in Kali Yuga, how many of us are able to actually perfect this process of yoga and go back to the material world by this yogic process? That's why we always recommended to do bhakti yoga, so that at least in this one life we can perfect and go back to the spiritual world. That's why we are always encouraged to do bhakti yoga, the process of bhakti, hearing and chanting and depending on the mercy of the Lord. So, and then what is that? The yogi has to desire to leave the material world in finer and grosser forms. So what does it mean? That not only give up this gross body, which we can see, but also the subtle body. Subtle body is our mind, intelligence, and false ego. That is also material. When I say, I think, so that's the function of the mind. So we have to give up this mind, intelligence, false ego. So then does it mean we have to become crazy? Or you say you give up the mind, but with the mind, intelligence, and being functional? No, we have to purify it. We have to purify our mind, purify our intelligence, and purify our ego. That's what is to be done. And the process of purification is hearing and chanting. The more we hear and chant, the more our mind is being purified. Our intelligence is being purified, and our ego is being purified. So, of course, man is endowed with free will, and as such, if he does not want to free himself from the material world, he may enjoy the life of Brahmapada, occupation of the post of Brahma, and visit Siddhaloka, the planets of materially perfect beings who have full capacities to control gravity, space, and time. To visit these higher planets in the material universe, one need not give up his mind and intelligence, finer matter, but need only give up grosser matter, the material body. So if the yogi feels, oh, I don't want to go back home, I still want to be in this material world, sure, Krishna has that arrangement also. Krishna is just fulfilling our desire. Then because he's reached perfection, he can become Brahmaji. He's capable, he has that capability to control the universe, manage the universe. Rather than control, manage. He has the capacity to manage the universe. So he can become Brahmaji, or he can go to Siddhalok. Siddhalok over there, everyone is perfect. They're all doing their meditations and their yoga. Yeah? And they have this siddhis there. They have siddhis. They have perfected. So they're not limited to this space, time, and gravity. They can travel, they can do interplanetary travel, one planet to another. They can even create one planet, become very small or become very big. Like that, can do, depends what is our desire. And to remain in the material world, we do not need to give up our subtle body. We do not need to give up subtle body in the material world. We need that still. But if we want to go to the spiritual world, then we have to give up the subtle body. So here, if the yogi is going to just another higher planet in the universe, so he gives up the gross body, which we are able to see, and he travels into another planet, into another higher planet. He takes his mind, intelligence, and false ego with him, and over there he gets another body suitable to live on that planet. So each and every planet has its particular atmosphere. And if one wants to travel to any particular planet within the material universe, one has to adapt his material body to the climatic condition of that planet. For instance, if one wants to go to India wants to go from India to Europe, where the climatic condition is different, one has to change his dress accordingly. So India is hot, Europe is cold, so then you have to put on the layers of underclothing, outer clothing, coat, gloves, everything, a hat. But in India, you don't need all that. It's so hot. So you don't need. So it depends on wherever we are going. We can see even on this earth where the conditions are different, we change our dress. Similarly, in every planet, the climatic conditions are different. So we change our dress. Similarly, a complete change of body is necessary if one wants to go to the transcendental planets of Vaikuntha. So the Vaikuntha atmosphere. Vaikuntha atmosphere is very different than the material atmosphere. Very different. So this material body we do not need in the Vaikuntha planets. We need a spiritual body there. However, if one wants to go to the higher material planets, he can keep his finer dress of mind, intelligence, and ego, but has to leave his gross dress, body made of earth, water, fire, etc. Yeah. So when one goes to the transcendental planet, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies. Or one has to reach the spiritual sky completely in a spiritual form. So if we want to go to the Vaikuntha world, a Vaikuntha planet, over there, this material gross body and subtle body does not work. The atmosphere is totally different. We don't need it there. We can go there only after we have given up this subtle and gross body. This change of dress will take place automatically at the time of death, if one so desires. If one so desires. So if we desire it, if we desire to go from the material world to the spiritual world, Krishna will make that arrangement. He will. So that's the reason we are advised to somehow get the desire to go back to the spiritual world. And it's always said, go back, go back home, back to Godhead. Go back home. It's not that we are going to a new place. We have to go back home. That is our home. Is that okay? Any comments or questions? What we've been reading?
So they're describing the yogi.
Yeah.
So like what is his process if he desires to go to the material or to the spiritual world?
Yes.
At the time when he leaves his body.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so we are advised also to become yogis, but bhakti yogis, because by Ashtanga yoga, we do not have that much life in this body. We live even up to 100 years. And that also so much part of our lives goes, just trying to understand how much of life is still actually there for us to do the yoga and meditation. Go to the forest and do it. We don't have it. And so we are advised to become bhakti yogis, hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting. And in that way have a desire to go back home, back to Godhead. And we'll read, of course. We'll read tomorrow how this change happens. How, and the Krishna says that he fulfills our desire. So at the time of death, what is our desire? What is our desire at the time of death? And we might say, okay, I will just desire it at the time of death. Let me just do whatever I need to do now. But at the time of death, we are going to desire whatever we desire throughout our life. Practice makes perfect. That's why we are advised to practice regularly, hearing and chanting. So we'll stop here for today. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.